This is Bishop Craig in Lansing, and this is take one for the week of the 29th of September. Peace be with you. First, about the hat that I am wearing. This is a Mickey Mouse hat with ears based on the Sorcerer's Apprentice, and I have been looking for such a thing for years and have never found it, and Chelsea got it for me for my birthday. So I just had to wear it once on camera because I'm so excited to have it. So if I look silly, good. In the reading for this coming Sunday, October 6th, I find some of the most graceful words that I find in the New Testament. The apostles say to Jesus, increase our faith, and he talks about faith the size of the mustard seed can move mountains, if you will. And how do we get such faith? And then Jesus goes on to say, none of you would slave your thank. None of you would thank your slave for plowing in the field or tending the sheep. You wouldn't say, come on and put your feet up and let me fix your dinner. You'd have said, basically, I'm hungry, get cooking. And Jesus says, so it is with us. When you have done as you are ordered to do, simply say, we are worthless slaves, we have done only what we have ought to have done. And so how do we get faith the size of the mustard seed? I think the answer is found in simple obedience. Not resentful obedience, but trusting and grateful obedience that God is at work and that policies or directions or commandments, 10 of them, are at our best. And so we are for our best. And so we have faith and are obedient. Now, I understand weighing that against, unquestionably following orders. I'm not saying that because humans can give some pretty bad orders. But we're talking about God here as revealed to us through Scripture and through prayer and through being part of the community. And here Jesus says, when you've done what you ought to have done, say we are worthless slaves, we've done only what we ought to have done. And where I find this to be graceful is that it liberates us from feeling bad when we don't get noticed or don't get appreciated or when we don't get results or when we're not successful or whatever we want to be. That being obedient is its own reward because it increases our faith, even if it's to the size of the mustard seed. That is sufficient. I was having a conversation with a pastor this past week who asked if I planned my career so that I would end up being bishop of the Northwest Lower Michigan Synod. And that's a fair question because people do plan their careers. I did not. I was really, as a matter of fact, I guess I didn't really get to do what I thought I would do. I wanted to be the senior pastor of a large congregation, and that never happened. When I graduated from seminary, the question was, could I even be a pastor? So I was grateful to get a call. If anything, the thing that kind of set the trajectory for my career was waiting for a call for a year, the answer being no right away, and during that year pursuing an advanced master's degree in theology at Trinity Seminary that ended up leading me to pursue PhD work that ended up leading me to be called as a seminary professor. And so in January 2013, I was the speaker at the rostered leader event for the 2 Michigan synods. And it was Bishop Don Chris had brought me there as the speaker. And I was sitting in a narthex while the 2 synods went and had their meetings. I was not a member of either synod. I was rostered in Iowa. and I knew that Northwest Lower Michigan was talking about a bishop selection, and people would poke their heads out and say, hey, can we nominate you for bishop? And I kind of went, sure, and then went back to my email. Didn't think anything of it. In April of 2013, Christine Allen, the Synod Secretary, called our home in Chicago and told me that my name had been lifted up as somebody to consider for bishop of, at that time, your synod. Apparently there had been a process where names had been lifted up, names had been suggested. I don't know about that because I wasn't here. But Chris Allen called and said that my name had been lifted up, and I asked a couple of questions. First, I asked, was there an heir? Well, first, was the bishop running again? Because I don't challenge a sitting bishop. I had been asked to be a candidate in several synods, and I don't challenge a sitting bishop. Second, so no, the bishop was not running again. Secondly, was there an heir apparent? Was there somebody who was going to be elected bishop, and we were just looking for some good competition, if you will? I learned to ask that question because I had been in a lot of call processes, senior pastorates, seminary presidents, those kind of things, where they said, thank you, you had enriched the process. But, come to find out, they knew who they were looking for. So I did not want, and that's fine. I understand how that works. So I didn't want to do that. So I said, is there an heir apparent? And I was told, no, there's no heir apparent. And then I asked, do I have to come to Michigan, as it's true in some synods, where you have to drive around the state with all the candidates for bishop and put on a dog and pony show? And because to be honest, I was a seminary professor and I was a bit too busy for that. No, he didn't have to do that. Had to answer some questions, which I did, in writing. And I was invited. We were invited to make a video too, which I did. The first ever take one video. Only that was a several take video, as I recall. So I put my name in, or I became available to be bishop of this synod, because I was invited to do so. The kicker for me was when Christine Allen said to me, "You don't know who I am, do you?" And I said, "Yeah, you're Chris Allen, the secretary of the synod." She said, "I'm also Eric and Nathan's mom." Eric and Nathan Allen were two of my students, two of my very fine students. And she said, I'm Eric and Nathan's mom. And the boys said to tell Dr. Satterley that he needs to consider this. And so what ended up happening in writing the answers to your questions, I became aware that this is something I needed to be open to. So I became available to serve as bishop of this synod in 2013 because I was invited to do so. And I was open to being invited to do so because very early on in our marriage, Kathy and I said we will never say no to anything. If we're invited to do something, we will always be open to the possibility that God is calling us and that we will be obedient. Because we learned early on that God's plans are bigger and bolder and brighter, including God's plans for us, than anything we could figure out for ourselves. So we would be obedient. We would be open. And that brings us, I think, back to this reading. It's about being obedient, doing what we're told, ordered, invited to do. And in the process, all it takes is faith the size of a mustard seed, and that's enough to change everything. It was certainly enough to change Kathy and my life and to bring us to Michigan. So I say that because I think we all individually as congregations, as a synod in our church, we get invited. And we need to be open, I think, or we can dare to be open and obedient, because the invitation might just be coming from God. So I won't be preaching on this text this week because we'll be going to Mackinac Island for our autumn leadership event, and I decided that this year for our synod worship, I would invite our 2 assistants to take responsibility. So one of them will preach and one of them will preside. I'm remembering that the last time we were at Mackinac Island for a rostered leader event, Kathy took a terrible fall, and I'm feeling a little haunted by that. So I would just like to go and be there, and I'm grateful that David and Roseanne will step up and do that for us. Very grateful. This week I will be meeting mostly with some congregational leaders and some pastors. It's Tuesday and Wednesday, I think. And on Friday, I will be on the campus of the University of Notre Dame, and on Saturday, we're going to go see a football game, and then we head to Mackinac Island. On Wednesday, we'll be in the office and meet as a staff. So continuing to be a traveling weekend, or a traveling week and a busy week, but not a preaching week again. So that's all right. Anything else I want to say? No, I don't think so. I'd like us all to consider the grace, the surprise, the power of being open and obedient. Because in the process, I believe that God does and will increase our faith. Peace be with you all.